Howdy folks, Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here, taking a look at your tropical update for August 18th of 2020, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling, looking at the next about 7 days of what's happening in the tropical Atlantic. We just had Josephine and Kyle wave bye-bye. Up next is Laura and Marco. Beyond that, Nana, and we'll probably get a look at Laura and Marco as we head through the next couple of days. Into the tropics we go, with nothing really going on into the Gulf of Mexico or the Northwest Caribbean, but we've got two waves. We've got 97L and 98L back here. We'll start things off with 97L, which now has a 30 to 70% chance of development as we head through the next 2 to 5 days. This one, again, I don't think we see much out of this until it gets a little bit closer to Jamaica. I've been saying that for the last couple of days, and so far it looks like that may hold true. There is some new signs that this thing may crash into the Yucatan or Belize. We talked about that yesterday. And then the one back in behind it with an 80 to 90% chance of development. The one behind it, 98L, has a little bit of interesting stuff happening with it. Now, I kind of want to highlight it real quick, and this was pointed out very well by Felipe Papin on Twitter, but how there's kind of two little areas in here and a little monsoon trough kind of between the two, and so depending on which of these two each one particular model picks up on, it is going to have a very different outcome down the line, right? So if you've got a model, for example, that picks up on this first one and says, okay, that's going to be the one that takes over, and we're going to make our spaghetti plots and yada yada yada, and we have our ensemble, and then you take the average of that ensemble and it goes that direction. Well, if the next model takes this as the center, and then we run an ensemble off of that, and it kind of does this, and then it takes that as the center one, the median, then you have two different outcomes because you've got two different areas in here, even though this whole piece in here is 98L. So worth noting as we head through the next 24, 48, and all the way out to 120 hours, depending on which one of these takes over as the main area of circulation is going to dictate down the line and over the next few days what happens with these. So when you're looking at spaghetti plots and modeling and all this stuff that has to do with 98L here, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, or whatever you look at, put a little asterisk next to it, because it is going to be dictated by whichever one is the one. So let's go back over to 97L, speaking of spaghetti plots, and we'll take a peek at where these things are headed out to. And here we go through Friday morning at 9 a.m. You can see that there's a cluster of these bad boys that kind of take it into Central America and the Yucatan, kind of toward Belize. And then we've got a couple of outliers in here that try and sneak it into the Gulf of Mexico. One thing to watch as we head through the weekend for sure, but there is a little bit more of an indication that we get some kind of development in here, and then it kind of turns into something there, and then kind of runs aground somewhere across parts of Central America before getting overly organized, which would be fantastic news. And now back out to 98L, and again, this depends on, hey, which center are we talking about? Are we talking about the first one, or are we talking about the second one? So that's going to dictate what happens down the line, and you can see that there's a reasonable amount of spread between these models as you get out to Sunday afternoon and evening, somewhere either as far south as Jamaica or as far north as the Bahamas. And so as we head through, here we go to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the next 4 days, there's a reasonable amount of spread, and once we get beyond that, it spreads out even further. Taking a look at two of the deterministic models that we have access to. First one's the GFS. It shows the first 97L right in here, 98L back over here, and it has 97 running right into parts of Central America at this point, but kind of clipping the Yucatan as it starts to lift off to the kind of north and northwest in response to a big ridge that's out here that's kind of steering things. It's kind of flattened out like this, and so as this kind of creeps to the north, 97L creeps to the north, it gets kind of caught up, and it eventually gets kind of roped around like that. 98L back here is still riding more off to kind of the west-northwest around that ridge. You can kind of see that there. And as we head through, this is Monday at 6 o'clock. We've got one that's just now getting into the Gulf, and another one that's on the other side of the Gulf of Mexico. And then, back in behind that, we have yet another one, which is back over here. So we've got 98L here, 97L here, and then 99L, or what may eventually become Nana, back over here. And again, that's one deterministic model from the GFS. We can go over here and look at the European model and do basically the same thing with 97L running, making a run at Central America, and 98L back over here. Notice 98L, this is still reasonably disorganized according to our European here, because it hasn't picked which one is going to be the one. And it's also probably accurately showing that when you have two areas of circulation out there, sometimes it takes a while for one to take over. Here we go through Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday, and 97L running ashore across parts of the Yucatan. This looks pretty disorganized as it approaches the Bahamas here as we head through Saturday afternoon and evening. 97L and 98L, one making a run at Texas and the other one kind of poking its nose out into the central Gulf of Mexico. The interesting thing of note is here we are at 5 o'clock on Monday, is that both the GFS and the Euro get both of these to roughly the same area in completely different fashions. One is kind of scraping the islands and reasonably disorganized, 98L. The other one shows 98L as a pretty well-defined system. One showing 97L as reasonably disorganized until getting a little more organized as it clips the Yucatan. And the European showing that it gets more organized before the Yucatan, rolls through the Yucatan, pops out on the other side disorganized, and then tries to make a run at Texas, but leaving it in the same place. Interesting note, 99L, I suppose, back over here, running well behind on the Euro compared to what the GFS is pointing out. And again, this is just two deterministic models showing, interestingly, four, two different outcomes for two different storms, so four different outcomes that lead to roughly the same outcome, if that makes sense. We're taking different paths to get to the same place, in essence. Now, what about intensity? I know that's going to be the #1 question, and we don't know yet. I don't like looking at intensity models out past 72 hours as a general rule of thumb. I certainly don't like doing it with InVest, because the modeling, which likes to have a center area of circulation to hold on to in order to extrapolate out what it may become, as an InVest, it doesn't have a central area of circulation, so the trustworthiness of those extrapolations, very small. So there's a look at your tropical update in terms of forecast tracks for 97 and 98L for August 18th of 2020, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling.